phone.
Oh, hello. Oh, hang on. Let me figure out how to do this. Jeez. No, I want rid of that and that. No. Hey. Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Excellent. Let me. Oh, hang on. We've got logos. We need to get rid of logos.
Live with StreamYard live show.
Yes.
So it says.
Now live, not with StreamYard.
Yeah, and there's something on the Twitter as well.
Yeah, I've everything we've done before has just gone out on YouTube, but seeing as this seems to be a thing, I thought I'd upgrade the software. StreamYard seems to have everyone raving about it, and it now goes out on Twitter and Twitch and stuff.
So people can just press the button and watch through Twitter without going anywhere else. Is that the idea?
I believe so.
I want to press play, but I'm too scared in case it breaks this. So.
Yeah.
No, hang on. I can press play, but like maybe. Oh, we've got a viewer. Yeah. No, it's this slight delay, isn't there? I can just see me as a slight delay.
Yeah. So with the other software, there was about a 20-second delay. With this one, I'm not sure. It's anywhere between 10 and 30 seconds is what they say. So yeah, we've got a couple of people watching. So to those watching, thank you for joining us. This isn't really a real official thing. This is me and Simon that have known each other for years. Simon helping me out testing this new software, which will hopefully be bigger and better than the stuff we used before. And we thought we'd just have a bit of a chinwag. And what I'd be really keen for, actually, because I want to kind of experiment with bringing people in and out of streams and just make sure this new software does the job. So if anyone watching this fancies asking a question, but not just putting it in text, although feel free to, but actually joining the stream, then just give me a shout and I can send you an invite link and you can pop on, you can ask Simon a question, or me, but probably mostly Simon, and do it live, and that would be really useful to me to help me test getting all manner of people jumping in and out of the streams, because that's what most of the events involve. So yeah, we'll see if we get any questions. But yeah, Simon. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, so the idea, because I'm interested in how the streaming technology works as well. So it's the idea that someone can ask a question on video and they can be there in the waiting room and you can press go and it'll go to them and they can ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, for did you see the event the other week?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so for the events, we don't do that because it's just there's too many balls in the air. But yeah, I was thinking as a test that should be possible today. And then people could just dive in, ask a question for 30 seconds, and then I can bring someone else in. It just lets me test, is there any problems bringing people in? Because the other software was quite good, but it needed you to log into Facebook before you could join the stream, which, a couple of people had some issues with, and I can't blame them, to be honest.
So I've just clicked on a link to join this, and I don't even have to log in, which is quite good. Okay, we should probably start talking about something more interesting, and then otherwise there'll be no one on the stream.
Indeed. So as an update, because I've not seen you in person, obviously, for months with all this nonsense, but I mean, just in general, what have you been up to this year?
I'm taking this opportunity to think about doing something new and looking at starting a studio, like an actual studio. So I've been working as an independent producer where I hire companies to make games for me, and I generally instigate those projects. I did Word Hunters just over a year ago, and so basically I got the funding to make that project from Sony. Worked with Sony to do that and to make a Playlink game. So they were looking for people to make Playlink games for them with a mobile, their system where the mobile phone connects up to the PlayStation. And it worked really well. And I hired I put together a team of sort of companies, external companies, to make that game. But it was my game that I came up with and pitched to Sony and got some funding for. And it all worked out pretty well. And the game was delivered. Well, it's delivered kind of early and on budget and all that kind of stuff. So to the specification, but it was still an original game, which was nice. And so I've been looking at doing that with some other companies. I'm possibly looking for a studio at the moment to make a sort of like a kind of I'm not really an indie, I'm independent, I'm not indie. So at the moment I'm still doing independent production where I'm hiring companies to make games for me, and I'll sort of come up with the idea. It's kind of semi work for hire. So like I kind of come up with the idea and pitch for funding and then work with the studio to deliver it. So they still have quite a lot of input, but it's not necessarily their idea that they come up with in the first place. So it's not like a work, it's not like a work for hire where they're doing something based on they're kind of doing based on someone's IP because it's my IP, but it's starting from scratch.
It's new IP, isn't it? It's kind of like it's just a partnership almost, isn't it?
Yeah. So it works really well with Word Hunters, and it can work really well with the stuff. It's only this one's only a year-long project, possibly. So it's not like a big thing. It's just a nice project to do, and everyone makes money out of it. We do something creative and interesting, and it's not like a tiny indie project. It's a bit bigger than that. So that was what I have been doing. Sorry, and then what I am looking at this year is I think it's a good. I don't want everyone to do it. I think it's a good opportunity to set up a new studio making games, because I think there's a lot of investment and interest floating around at the moment. So I think it's actually, I've said this, and I think other people have said this as well. I remember seeing Ian Livingston and other people have said this on question and answer sessions, that it's a good time to be starting a games company, because with the pandemic, the games industry can create stuff remotely, deliver stuff remotely, and have the consumers consume it remotely. So we're completely digital, we're completely location independent. We don't need an office. We don't need on the one hand, we don't need an office to create the content in. And then on the other hand, we don't need a place like a cinema where the content, I don't like using the word content, but you can get what I mean, where the content is consumed. So from a business point of view, it's actually, we're a good business to be interested in at the moment during the pandemic. And again, we don't know how long the pandemic's going to go on. We don't know how much the world has changed because of it. We don't know how things like offices are going to change and how people's working practices are going to change. A lot of the games industry, probably 25% of the games industry is location independent, working from home, working from coffee shops, whatever anyway. And I think it's a good time to take advantage of that. So I could start making my own games, but get investment to do that. So I think it's a good pitch for a company to do maybe have a small team based here a small core team based here in Manchester, not necessarily in an office.
Exactly.
But my core people that I want to work with, I'm not just having, like, the core team is not just random people that I don't know. I like the idea of we have the core team based in Manchester, and if we want to have an office together, we can, because we're all a bit older as well, so we're all kind of like used to working in an office together or with other people. So I still think that it's nice to have like this maybe core office of 5 to 10 people, and then and that can come in and out as they want. So you might not necessarily do 5 days a week in the office. You might do 3 days a week, or you might do 2 days and then 1 day and then 2 days or whatever. And it's kind of flexible working, which we want and which we do anyway. I've worked from home for ages now and done bits and pieces all over the place. I was just in a coffee shop because coffee shops have started reopening. So I was in a coffee shop in Manchester working, and then I came back home to do this call just because it's a bit quieter to do it from home rather than I could have done it from a coffee shop if I find a quiet corner.
Yeah. Can you imagine half a dozen people all on video calls in different corners of coffee shops?
I have seen that before. I've definitely seen people
really?
on calls. Yeah, I've definitely seen people on calls before. I don't know about
on video calls, and I mean, not that there's really any difference, but then taking part in a live stream in a public setting, it then just starts to feel a bit much, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's why I came home, because I thought it was more professional. I thought it was more professional to do it in my office than to do it in the coffee shop. But I could have done it in the coffee shop. I think I don't know. Maybe I'd be more guarded about what I'm saying. But if we're streaming in public,
exactly. Yeah. Worry more about the billions on YouTube than the 10 people in the coffee shop with you.
That's one of my favourite Alan Partridge quotes, where he says, "I'm on the where he starts doing internet radio to a potential audience of billions." And that's we're a potential audience of billions here, aren't we?
Indeed. But we do have a couple of questions coming in, so we might as well experiment with the tech. So let's see. So we have our first question. So when you were talking about that sort of partnership work for hire, are you the designer or are you the ideas guy that the designers draw from?
Well, both really. I mean, I'm creative director, come up with ideas to start off with, but on Word Hunters I did a lot of the design myself, because I've got experience being a designer. The phrase ideas guy is a very a loaded phrase, and I don't actually have a problem with it, because I did a whole presentation about being the I think I did it at a couple of conferences about being the ideas guy, because I hate it when people put things about, like, you can't, like, you see people saying you can't get a job as being the ideas guy. I'm like, well, I've been doing it for years and made money out of it and been employed to do it. So yeah, it is a thing you can do. I think there's a very limited.
Although you're so much more than that. I mean, you're pitching for the original funding, you're commissioning, you're bringing the whole thing together. I mean, you're actually doing a huge number of different roles. The idea, the design, the vision is just one part of it, isn't it?
Well, I think that's the difference. So I have thought about this, and I think that's the difference between being just the ideas guy and then being able to make those. Like, there's it's the same with everyone, isn't it? It's the same with whether you're an indie developer or the head of Sony or whatever. If you've got an idea, how do you make that idea happen? And if you've got an idea, if you're an indie person, then maybe you are a programmer and you want to make that idea happen. Then but you're probably not going to do it all by yourself. So you need to find an artist, you need to find a musician, and all that kind of stuff. But then if you're the head of Sony and you want an idea to happen, you can't, even if you're the head of a big corporation, you can't necessarily just click your fingers and expect something to happen. You still got to do stuff. You still got to do like financial projections, and I mean, it's great. I suppose if you're someone that basically owns the company, like Elon Musk or someone like that, then maybe you can click your fingers and tell people that you want a new factory in Venezuela or wherever, and it will happen. But you still got to justify stuff. But I do loads of design. I wrote all the Word Hunters. I wrote every single line of the dialogue script, for example. So and it was a combination of me and the designers. We had 15 mini games in Word Hunters, and some of them are existing games like word searches, but then we had to make that word search simultaneous 6-player game, so we had to do that. And then some of the ideas we actually came up with four maybe original word games, multiplayer word games, which we're quite proud of. And I think probably maybe a couple of those were mine, and a couple of those were the designers from the company as well. So yeah, it's a good opportunity to do different stuff. I think that sort of answered the question.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question in, and this is something that's come up in the chat on the Games Jobs Live event about discrimination against folk with disabilities. I mean, obviously, with the pandemic and everyone sending people home to work, coming into an office is no longer an issue. but there's still a concern that people are getting discriminated against, just because when we are allowed back into offices, maybe companies are expecting people to go bounding up flights of stairs or whatever it is. I mean, how are you seeing that being approached by companies at the moment, and are we getting better at not discriminating as an industry?
I think that you have to work, all forms of discrimination. You have to work to overcome them. And I think particularly with the disabilities issue and the physical space issue, I think that you've got to, if you want the best people, you've got to work around them. You should be, the companies. I was literally talking to a program about this the other day who doesn't have a disability, but we were talking about working from home, and I was saying to her, well, you should, you're a good programmer, you should be telling these people what you want. You should be speaking to companies and saying, I only want to do 4 days a week, or I only want to work in the office 2 days a week, or something like that. And yeah, I mean, it is easier if you're an experienced programmer and people want to go out of the way to make you happy and make you work there. And it is harder to do that. But yeah, people should be doing that. I mean, another issue that we've got with working from home is sort of the training issue as well. I was talking about this with my partner last night. How do you get people on board the company? How do you help them? And how do you train them and do stuff? But people have been doing online training for years. The Open University has been going for 60 years. And they've done quite a good job of teaching people without having them in a physical space. But I mean, just taking that question specifically with the disabilities issue, the company has to work to make sure those people are included in what they're doing. I know a company recently, I won't say the name because it's not my business to talk about them directly, but I know a company that did something about this. They were on a first floor office in an old building in Manchester, and this first floor office didn't have any disabled access. It had 3 steps up to the sort of ground floor, and then a set of staircase up to the first floor, and first floor, second floor even. There's a lot of steps anyway, and they didn't like that fact that they couldn't hire people who needed wheelchair access, for example. So they've moved office because of that. That's one of the main reasons they moved offices, so that they could attract that sort of people, that sort of person who needed their needs met. And there's actually an example of someone, a programmer that's in a wheelchair that we know that couldn't work there for that reason, because of needing to get physically into the office. But I think a lot of this stuff as well is kind of moot with the working from home stuff, because
I mean, it certainly should be. I think this person's point is that they don't feel it is, and that's. I mean, ultimately, companies need work done. So it shouldn't matter. So it's, particularly when you're working from home, it really shouldn't matter. But I guess they're just seeing that maybe they're not being given the chance to prove that it doesn't matter. It does feel as an industry it's getting a bit better in terms of all these sorts of things, and diversity and crunch culture. There's still massive problems. Yeah. But it does feel, I mean, we're still a relatively new industry. There's only so many decades we can keep saying that, but
I was just about to say that to you. There's only a certain, we can't keep saying that.
No.
But I do think that I think what's really interesting about working from home, the working from home issue with the pandemic, I think the pandemic's given sort of the indie companies like Roll7 are completely they don't have an office. No. They completely work from home, or we don't say work from home, we say remote, because they might not be at home. They might be one of them might prefer to coffee shop. Yeah, but also one of them might prefer to work from a co-working space because they don't like, or their home office, but a co-working space would be a good example, because I don't really like having a home office. I prefer having people around. So I've been working out of co-working spaces. But yeah, I think that, so I was going to say with the sort of the mainstream games industry, the non-indie games industry, I think this pandemic is giving them a kick and showing them how easy it is to have people working from home and that flexibility if they want to. I think the big question, I was speaking to someone about this the other day who's got a tech company, not a games company. I was saying, do you think that productivity is an issue yet? And he was saying that they think they're running about 90% productivity, which is pretty good. And he was pretty happy with that. He says it's arguably better than having people in the office, because people are just sort of like not doing meetings all the time, and they're doing stuff, and they just sort of like, if you've got people that can be left to get on with their jobs, then they are just going to do it. And he said he was worried about them working too much, because if they're working from home, they just stay working and doing stuff. And he was like, no, I need to get them to stop, which is a sort of a nice problem to have, isn't it? But I think we're not as a society, because the pandemic's only been happening for 4 or 5 months. I think we're not talking about productivity yet, and I think that will become more of a question between now and Christmas.
Yeah, but I'm hearing the same things. I mean, you know, training, getting a new member of the team up to speed. I mean, I know companies that have said, you know, like 9 months ago, said, "Oh no, we can't have people working remotely. We couldn't get them trained."
Yeah.
But when you have to, you find a way. You make it work. And certainly, productivity. My sense is about the same. That people are seeing maybe a little bit of a hit on productivity, but also, I mean, I feel I have less meetings. I feel more productive, but there's impacts beyond that, sort of on, you know, creativity and brainstorming and everything. All just has to be done in different ways that we maybe haven't adapted to yet. So it would just be interesting to see in the longer term just what we see as the pros and cons, because I mean that's exactly what it is. There's plenty of pros working remotely, and there's some cons as well, and we maybe don't understand them all yet, and won't for a while until we've been through like an entire product life cycle. We maybe won't understand them, I guess.
I think it's one of the difficult things is trust, in just as a general thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, from a business point of view, I think that people trying to get people to trust them to give them money. So say like people pushing, I mean, I haven't really spoken to many people about this recently, but and all the publishers are saying, oh yeah, we're all really nice and friendly. But you know, I think it's really difficult to give someone some money to fund their game if you've not physically met them. I think people just like physically meeting people and knowing that they exist. But then, you know, publishers in the UK fund people in Australia that they haven't necessarily met.
Yep. Yeah, but no, it's a fair point. I mean, they've often met them at a conference, they've met them at GDC or something, and there is just a human reassurance that they're real and this isn't just some high-end CGI scam.
It's not just some Nigerian email scam or something. Please fund Game Mine. If you email enough publishers. Maybe we should be doing Nigerian style email scams or whatever they're called. Maybe if we email enough publishers with a slightly badly written email, eventually one will just like give us £1 million or something, and because they've fallen for it. It's just. Could try it.
Could be worth the shot. Yeah, we'll come back to you in 6 months and see how you've got on. Just looking at it, we've got a couple more comments. So let's just play around with this text so we can bring them up on screen. So the person that asked that previous question was saying good on that Manchester company for moving office to widen their candidate inclusion. And the same person's also saying been seeing companies binning off single candidates before they can get ordered an interview. That's
just disgusting behaviour, and I'm trying not to swear about that. You know, tell them to F off. That's just like that's disgusting behaviour. Disgusting behaviour.
Yeah, and hopefully that's the minority, but it's still not acceptable for anyone, even a minority. So hopefully they see that improve.
Yeah, that's the same as saying I don't want black people or something. You know, it's just it's disgusting behaviour. You know,
No.
you can't do that. I think there is bias. There is bias, and people need to work against the bias. And I think that I do think that all forms of discrimination are terrible. It's interesting actually that someone brings up the issue of disabled people, because that's not, you know, over the past few months, you know, people haven't really been talking about disabled people in the games industry. I don't think we have a specific organisation or like a standard bearer for that.
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I think there's just been so much going on, between the games industry's Gamergate and gender issues and race issues. But yes, we need to make sure and being selfish as an industry, we need to make sure we're not missing out on amazing talent that just happens to have a disability. I mean, everything can be worked around. We need the best, widest selection of candidates we can to make the best possible games. So
so I was going to say we did this, right? We did the Yuki census in the end of last year, and then we had that, and we did have. I'm just looking so I can get you the stats, but we did have we did ask questions about people's disabilities and that as well. I can't remember the stats off the top of my head. I remember the stat about there being a lot of LGBT people, but I don't remember the percentage of disabilities. I'm looking.
Let's see if we've had any other comments. If anyone wants to actually jump on the stream to ask a question, that would be
if anyone's got a camera.
Interesting. Yeah. So do just give me a shout. Actually, I'm not sure what's the best way to do that. Probably on Twitter. Send me a tweet just to the Games Jobs Live account, and I can send you back a link that lets you join the stream. But so far, the tech seems to stand up to us both being on it. At least it'd be nice to try it with a few more.
I'm just looking because I'm interested about the disability stats now, so I'm looking at looking for their stats.
Perfect.
I remember that I thought that we should ask more questions about for the Yuki census. We should ask more questions to get more granularity on it, not just for disability, but things like gender definition. And we asked about neurodiversity, which is quite interesting, social background, things like school type. I'm just scrolling through and stalling while I. Any more questions?
Yeah, no more questions. And the only thing I was going to do, I've got a book here. Hang on, let me just see if I can find this book.
Pardon me?
Yeah, it was this book, which, if anyone's interested in remote working, it's just called Remote Office Not Required. I highly recommend. It's very readable. It's not that big, and it just talks about it's advocating working remotely, but not in a salesy. It solves all the problems. It's quite frank about the pros and cons of it and what you can do to address some of the cons. And there's various diagrams as well. So it's actually quite easy reading. So that's an afternoon's read if anyone else is thinking about following your example of setting up a new, possibly remote studio.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds interesting. I think as well there was in MCV either last month or the month before, there was an article with Roll7 talking about their remote working system. That was quite interesting. So that's still on the MCV online archive.
Yeah, and they've been doing that for years. I mean, that's not a COVID thing, is it?
No, they've been doing it for years. This article, the article I think was probably done before COVID and all that kind of stuff. It just happened to come around a very interesting point in time that people were talking about it. I'm just looking at the Yuki census, talking about that disability issue and with people, how many people were. They described it as long-term conditions, and so I think this went something like 3,000 people responded to the Yuki census, and 21% said they had some sort of chronic health condition. So I did notice when we did the survey that I thought we should get more information next year. But it's the first time Yuki have done the service. I say we because I was on and did some advice for it. I don't work for Yuki. I'm a Yuki member, so. But I think that next year we should get more info. We should ask more questions, more granularity, more deeper questions. We have got some more questions.
Well, and we've got someone from the UK Games Fund that's obviously watching, just saying there's also a great podcast, which is a UK Games Fund podcast, I happen to know, about remote working as well. So definitely check that out. There is a link in the comments which we can conveniently bring up as well. Wow, isn't technology marvelous?
And also, we should mention to anyone that's watching that UK Games Fund are doing an online talk at 5 o'clock tonight with Payload Studios Tentacle Zone about UK Games Fund. So if you look at the UK,
I did see that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's my next thing to watch later. How much of myself now? But that's the thing to watch later. 5 o'clock. If you look on the UK Games Fund Twitter, they've got a link to it. I think I retweeted it earlier as well. Colin probably has. Talking to a couple of studios about how they've got money from UK Games Fund. So I'm quite interested to hear about that. Oh yeah, if that is it Mike commenting on the here, or Mike is on later, or both? Anyway,
a bit of both. Yeah, Mike's definitely on that one later, isn't he? I saw his.
So that's a top tip for your early evening entertainment is watch the UK Games Fund Q&A.
Yeah, so I've just retweeted that from the Game Jobs Live Twitter account as well, just to make sure everyone's got the link. But yeah, fantastic. And then we did have another question. How far along are you when you start making funding proposals? When you start pitching, I guess.
I think for someone like me that's been in the games industry a while and has got just like people you can chat to, I think you can do it anytime. So like I just rang up because you're trying to build relationships with people, aren't you? Because then business is about relationships, creative, and it is a business because you're trying to get money out of people. So if you can build relationships with people, then you can then go to them and just give them a call. So I was speaking to a publisher the other day. I just said, I just wanted to ask you about this project and blah, blah, blah. And just had a chat with them about it. And they were like, send like a one-pager over just to explain it a bit better and that kind of stuff. And we'll have a chat. But I think you can talk to them at any time. But, the not the holy grail, but you really want to be building those relationships. And it takes years. It can take years. So you can just ring people up and say, "Hey, what do you think of this idea?" And you don't necessarily want to be spending loads of money developing something as a prototype or anything. And then, these people go, "I think that's a terrible idea." So if you just have a chat with someone about it, and people, you worry. You can worry about people stealing your ideas and stuff, but. The old adage is it's not about 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. So it's about whether you can actually make that game or not.
Yeah, no, I certainly have never worried about people stealing ideas because none of us are short of ideas. We don't need more ideas. We've all got a million games and projects we want to do of our own. We don't need to go around stealing anyone else's,
It does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's happened to me. I literally did a pitch to a publisher for a licensed game, and they basically took the idea and made it with someone else. So it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I wouldn't worry about it.
But I think in the scheme of things, maybe whatever, it maybe happens 1 in 100 times. But if you don't put your idea out there and get out there yourself, then you'll never get to make it either. So I think it's maybe just the risk you've got to get on board with.
I think people get paranoid about things when they just need to talk to people about stuff. But yeah, you can talk to people at any time. But as I say, try and build that relationship with people, and try and it's harder now because we're doing everything remotely. I think it's harder for new people to meet people at the moment, because if you're going to conferences and stuff, you can just sort of like have a coffee with someone. And to be honest with you, I think a lot of people that are dealing with funding or have the money need to be more open about stuff, because they don't talk enough. They don't necessarily outreach enough. So some publishers. Because I think that publishers should be outreaching to people as much as possible, and going and talking to people and doing things like live streams and all sorts of stuff. They should be, they shouldn't be basically sat on the bums, on the backsides, waiting for people to come to them. They should be actively going. And also, one thing that really annoys me about the games industry that I think that people with money should do more of, is I think they should do more funding of early prototypes. So, for example, in the film industry, you get film companies, paying people to write scripts. So people go and pitch an idea for a script, and this still happens. This happens all the time. Spec scripts, people write the whole script, but a pitch, they might go into a film studio and say, blah blah blah, I want to do this. Depending on how good the idea is or how experienced they are, the film company will offer them X amount of money and can then get first refusal, and that doesn't really happen in the games industry. I think that publishers should be funding more. I think publishers and I say people with money. So UK Games Fund are doing that. That is the point of UK Games Fund, is to do this, but they've only got obviously a limited amount of money. They should be saying, right, well, we'll maybe do like X amount of prototypes this year, and maybe one of them will come off, or maybe two of them will come off. And that just doesn't really happen. It does sometimes. I think, I worked in Sony external development for a while. They were quite good at funding stuff that might not go somewhere, and they saw it as part of their remit to do that, which I thought was pretty cool. There was plenty of stuff that they would do, and they say, you say get canned, but some stuff it doesn't necessarily get canned in a bad way, because sometimes you might get paid to work on a prototype for 6 months, and then it just doesn't really go anywhere, or it's not the right thing, or something too similar comes along from someone else, and you have to make that business decision to cancel it. So I think that people with money should be funding more stuff that doesn't necessarily go anywhere.
Yeah, I actually make the case that, not only should we be funding more in terms of prototypes, but we should probably also be doing it by cancelling more projects. That I think as an industry, we're bad at just continuing with a project just because it started. And, just because we've started something doesn't mean we should finish it. And I think, okay, Hollywood's maybe goes too far in terms of the number of things that get canned. But I do think we've got a lot of projects that just people spend too much of their lives on, when they're not going to do what anyone hopes they would. So I would rather see those cancelled earlier and people iterate more, rather than spending 4 years of your life on one project. Spend the first couple of years and play around with half a dozen different ideas, and then pick the one amazing one out of that when you do it, you're going to be really proud of, and it's going to make a difference, and it's, commercially it's going to be worth everyone's while. I think you can now do so much with the tools. You can and should be prototyping more, and most of them not going beyond that, but that's okay, as long as you get the scope to play around and find the ones that should go beyond that.
Yeah, I've personally kind of been doing that for the last year, really, and I've got a couple of projects now that I want to push forward that I think are strong enough ideas, but I've been doing stuff that's not really gone anywhere, and you have to sort of admit that that's not necessarily a bad thing, like you were just saying, but then again, some things you just keep going for ages. I've literally got a project that I've been working on for 18 years. So I first started talking about it in 2002. and I'm still trying to make that happen.
We're not talking about your beard or something like that.
My beard was a lot bigger this morning. I shaved it especially for this call.
Oh, we appreciate it.
But it's interesting though, because I was thinking, like, am I crazy, like, keeping this game? Am I crazy keeping this game idea concept going for so long? Because I literally came up with it in 2002, and I've been trying to get it through multiple versions and iterations, and I'm just about to start to talk, just about talking to someone else about it, and it could happen. And I was thinking, am I crazy about that? And then I was watching Gangs of New York, the Scorsese film, the other day, which I think is from 2003. And Scorsese had been, so it came out in 2003. Scorsese had been working on Gangs of New York since the mid 1970s. So over 20 years. And artists do that. I mean, I'm not claiming to be an artist, but people do that. You know, look at, I'm a big Stanley Kubrick fan. Stanley Kubrick was trying to make his Napoleon movie. That he was still working on his Napoleon movie when he died. In 99 or whenever, and he'd been working on that for like 40 years to try and get his vision of this Napoleon movie. Look at James Cameron, blooming James Cameron, Avatar, that's been in the news recently because he's gone back another year. Blooming Avatar came out in 2009, and the next one is coming out in 2000, Avatar 2 is coming out in 2021, or 22 now, is it? Oh, I've lost track.
Do you think it's more difficult for us as an industry to do that because, you know, I mean, the tech moves so quickly, engines evolve, platforms evolve. You know, we have a new platform every 5 years on average historically, and I mean, obviously, technology in movies evolves. But do you think it's harder for us, or is that just an excuse?
I think that's an excuse. My idea that, well, maybe I'm just really clever, and my idea that I came up with in 2002 was so ahead of its time. I like to think that, actually, but like sort of around now, it's sort of like the perfect storm of situation where that idea really works if I can make it happen. So I'm still like, that idea has got more relevant as the games industry has developed over the last 18 years. That idea has genuinely got more relevant. I'm not saying they couldn't have been done in 2002, but the concepts behind it are actually increasingly relevant year on year, especially over the last 2 or 3 years. I was my other fact about James Cameron that I read yesterday was that he did, between 1984 and 1994, he made five films. And between 1994 and 2021, he'll have made 2 films. So that's like 25 years he makes 2 films, like, and one of the then Avatar and its sequels, aren't they? So I just thought it was a great fact.
Yeah. We'll wrap up before too long, but if anyone else has got a question, I'd love someone else to join the stream and ask the question live. I've posted out a link. It's a StreamYard link. StreamYard's the software we're using. So if anyone at all wants to ask a question, do just jump. I think you just click through that link and you should appear in a little green room. And as long as there's nothing obscene on display, then I can bring you into the stream. So if you've got any,
I'm looking to see if I've got anything obscene. Sorry.
So yeah, do just jump on the stream and ask away. Meantime, we do have another question. I think this is jumping back to prototyping. See, the animation has evolved so much in 18 years. It's a car driving game you're wanting to do, isn't it, Simon?
Yes.
You're wanting to animate that car.
I built it last night.
So the question is, could investors in general be part of the issue in being allowed to take time off to develop an idea with the need to see a return sooner rather than later?
Yeah, I mean, investors are an issue both ways, aren't they? Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? Because like investors, like tech investors, I was talking to a friend about this yesterday. Actually, we're having a call about it. And we were talking about investment. Tech investors want the crazy stuff. he was pointing out that tech investors want the moonshot, as they say in America. They want the crazy stuff because that's the stuff that's going to give them the biggest return. If they just do a game like it, so in the context of the games industry, if they just do a game that's like another Fortnite, for example, then they're not necessarily, they might make a bit of money, but they're not necessarily going to make a lot of money because it's been done before.
They don't actually want, they don't want safe bets. You know, they don't want one where it's like, oh yeah, there's a 50% chance we'll make a good return. They would rather invest in, you know, I think the classic one is they invest in 10 companies, they expect half of them to fail. You know, and they kind of actually want half of them to fail because that means they're taking risks at the right sort of level, that they're not too safe, because they want one of them to be that moonshot, as you say, and be worth, you know, not just a 10 times return, but like 1,000 times return. And maybe the other 4, they end up, you know, it sells for a modest return. But yeah, it's that, you're right, it's that 1 out of 10 that they're really interested in. And it's why games are not really generally suitable for, you know, venture investment, because Fortnite's maybe a bad example where it would have been a, you know, $1,000,000x return, but most of them are not. You know, you put 100 grand in, you're happy with a couple of 100 grand out, but that's not how tech investment works.
No, because we're not. You know what people forget about the games industry, and I'm always going on about, is we're not a tech industry. We're a creative industry. We're a creative industry that uses technology to make and deliver and play our content, but we're not a tech industry. We use tech and we create tech, but we're not a tech industry. So we operate in a different way, and people don't necessarily understand that. But it's still risk, isn't it? You know, it's. You know, I mean, plenty of companies make plenty of games and have a slate of games, and I think the publishers that are more, you know, doing the more risky stuff are gonna make more money. And I think. Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know. Let's take an example. If you look at someone like Team 17, I think they've taken a few risks over the last 10 years. I think you know, Overcooked would probably be a good example. Escapist, I think Escapist would be a great example, actually. I think because like Overcooked always was amazing. Like right from the beginning, you knew it was going to be successful. Whereas the Escapist, I think, is a little bit more of an acquired taste. It's a bit more niche, but the niche turned out to be a really big niche. So I think if you look at those two games, I would say the Escapist is probably slightly more risky than Overcooked.
Yeah. I've still not actually played it, and it's ironic because I was a massive fan of the Great Escape on the Spectrum. You know, so it's exactly my sort of game, but I just there's just too many games. We can't play them all, can we? So.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so I do think that is a good example of taking some risk and then being able to exploit the risk that you've made, if that makes sense.
Yeah. A couple of comments from the Spacecraft X, just following up on the point about pitching. So saying currently just looking for work in the industry, but building up a collection of design documents for the future. So again, they'll be following you and hoping to realize those ideas over the years. And then also saying to get funding, do they need highly developed design documents, prototype? What makes the difference for an unknown? Oh, the eternal question. What's the biggest thing? I mean, I've got a couple of thoughts on that. What's yours, Simon?
It to a certain extent, it doesn't matter what the game is or how good the game is. It's more about your ability to deliver that game. So can you make that game? Can you make that game within a certain budget and within a certain time period? You know, it's about delivery. If you're trying to get money out of someone, it's about delivery. It's about, can you deliver a good standard game in that time period for X amount of money?
They've got to have confidence, don't they? They need to know they're not pouring their money down the tubes.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely, everyone wants a great idea, but you've got to be able to deliver that idea.
Yeah. And the thing for me, and I'm not a born salesman, so this is something I've struggled with, but the thing for me that I've seen make a real difference is just finding a way, and it's probably different for every person and for every game, just finding a way to get someone excited about your idea, your game. And I see some games do that in a GIF, so it's like a 5-second clip. Some it's just a bit of concept art. For some, it's nothing even written. It's just an elevator pitch. It's 30 seconds describing it, and that just captures a publisher's, a funder's imagination. And I've seen some amazing games that have just struggled to capture the imagination that way, and they end up not getting funded. And there's an art of just finding, and it depends on the target, as who you're pitching it to. That you've got to figure out, okay, what's going to float their boat? What's the best way, the best format I've got to convey this amazing idea, amazing project.
I did a talk about pitching, and one of the big things I was trying to get ahead to people was that you're pitching a person. You need to pitch the person. So it's actually quite easy these days to research into the person that you're pitching to. So you can look on their Twitter and see what kind of games they like.
Yeah.
And if they tweet loads of, ideally the person that you're pitching to will be quite open-minded and will say, well, I might not like that game, but I appreciate that all these people will like the game, or it could sell really well. So I'm getting this light's gone really bright. But I think that if you can get a person that's an advocate for your games, because they like your game, then that's a lot better. So if you've got a certain style of game and you look and see if this person likes this certain style of game, or have said, like, there's one guy that I know, I follow him on Twitter, and he often tweets, to people, there's not any games like this, you should pitch games like this. And basically he means you should pitch games like this to me, because he wants to do that game and he's got money and will fund games. So certainly you can do a lot of research into, the company as well, is a company that does a lot of, a lot of kids games. Is there any point in pitching them an MMO or something? That's really basic stuff. But you can research and pitch to the tastes of individual people as well. Yeah. And again, part of that is listening to them and stalking them, I suppose, slightly, and researching what they're into.
No, but that is just basic research. I do see a lot of people get that wrong. That there's now so many publishers out there, and so many of them specialize in a particular area. And if you've not done your basic research on what sort of things they publish, you just look at the back catalogue, and if all they do is narrative games, then don't pitch them a match 3, or if all they do is casual games, then don't pitch them a hardcore JRPG or whatever. And even if you're on the fence, on the sort of borderline of what they might consider, if they can tell that you've not done your research on their other games,
people hate that. People hate it if you look like or sound like you've not done any research into them. They find it insulting.
Yeah, I get, when I was at Channel 4, I was commissioning a bunch of stuff, and I would have people pitching all sorts of stuff, and I was never offended if I felt someone hadn't done the research. I just felt it was a bit of a waste of everyone's time, theirs as much as mine. That we had no kids programs, we had no football, and no whatever else, but I would get a lot of pitches for kids games and football games and stuff, and it's like, where's the connection? You've come up with something and you're just randomly slinging it at targets, and you're wasting your time most of the time. It's an easy decline for me.
Yeah, exactly. And and a lot. I think what's interesting is the amount of sort of like indie and small gamers that try and pitch stuff to people like they've got a game that's going to cost $100,000. In fact, most indie gamers don't even have a game that's going to cost $100,000. It's going to cost less than that, and they're pitching to people like Activision, and they don't even have an indie game program. mean, EA do with EA partners, but EA aren't looking for EA still aren't looking for 100 grand games. They're looking for an EA. I think an EA indie game is probably in the millions of dollars, not the hundreds of thousands. So you got to do research into who you're talking to. But I mean, the other thing I always say to people with the jobs and how to get somewhere is think very seriously about whether you can be an indie developer and work in a coffee shop part-time and make your game the rest of the time. That's the one way of doing it, because you still got to eat. I always say to people, if you want to make bigger games and get more money and funding, then a really good way to do it is to get a job in the existing games industry and then break away from that after a few years, because then at least you can say, like, I've done this. I mean, I've done that over a number of years, but my first job was at Codemasters, which sort of set me up for the rest of my career because it was such a respected place, particularly when I joined in the early noughties. Like, if you can work somewhere and work on good stuff and respected stuff, then it sets you up for the rest of your career.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of sort of high profile people. Mike Bithell springs to mind. People that have done that. They've got a pet project that has turned into his entire career, and I'm sure there's plenty others that have done it that way. It's a nice way of getting experience and not betting the farm as such. Suddenly going indie and struggling to bring in any money for a year or two, which is a scary prospect.
Yeah, I mean, I always say to people, you better really, I think, doing any job in the games industry than no job in the games industry. That's my personal opinion. So if you're working in QA and making games in your spare time, that's a really valid way of getting into the games industry. If you're going to meet people, I think if you're working in, if you're working at McDonald's, it's a perfectly valid job, but it's not going to get you anywhere in the games industry. So you might be working at McDonald's during the day and making your game at night or whatever. And like, even if like any job in the games industry. Like, I worked before, when I was at university, I worked in the game shop just because it was interesting, and that actually did help on my CV when I was applying for jobs, because it showed I had an interest in video games.
Yeah, and just you're sort of living you take more of an interest in the developers and the production cycles, and you're just sort of living the industry a little bit more, aren't you? So it does all absorb in.
Yeah, people want that.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll wrap this up just now, I think, but just one last shout out in case anyone does want to jump in with one last question on the live stream.
Has anyone got a camera? Yeah, who's got a camera?
Right, exactly.
So we can test the multi-person.
But otherwise, I think the tech is held up. I've been playing around with little tickers along the bottom and daft things like this. So I think we'll use this software going forward, as far as I can tell. It played the video at the start. Just while we give everyone a chance to jump on, is there anything else sort of upcoming in the Manchester area or any other organisations you're involved in you want to cover?
Let's do an experiment on the stream. Can I share my screen? That's interesting. Should we try that? Right. Yep. So what I'm going to do is going to go to, because I'm on the BAFTA. I've just been co-opted to the BAFTA Games Committee. So I'm picking up BAFTA stuff. So let me show you this page. Yeah, so I can show you the page as well. So by sharing my screen, just to make sure there's nothing I don't want you to see. Right, so if I try and share my screen now, this is a good test for your technology. Screen sharing is easiest with 2 monitors. Okay, let's try it anyway. Right, so if I share my screen, oh, that's good. Application window, Chrome tab. This is what we want, isn't it? Right, there we go. So there you go. Can you see that, Colin? Breakthrough Brits.
Can indeed.
Yeah. So there's 2 things that BAFTA are sort of picking up at the moment. So we've got the Breakthrough Brits, and this is a program. You can basically go to BAFTA, or you can just Google BAFTA Breakthrough Brits. If you look, there's 3 game developers on there. Gemma with a hat on, jumping up on the right. That's Gemma, who works. She's part of. I say works for. She's one of the. owners, founders of Ghost Town Games, who made Overcooked, and she wrote all the dialogue and characters and stuff for Overcooked. She's also a playwright. She's done audio dramas and getting into TV and stuff as well. So here we go, there's Gemma. So she lives here in Manchester. So she got named a Breakthrough Brit, and basically Breakthrough Brit, there's about 20 people each year, and what it does, it's for people, you don't necessarily have to be really young, but it's someone that's maybe at a point in their career where they're having some sort of breakthrough moment. So Gemma had done Overcooked 2. She had, I think she did a Doctor Who and an Avengers audio book drama as well. So, and then she had a play produced. So like lots of stuff was happening for her. So they named her a Breakthrough Brit for this year. And it's really good because it just gives you loads of kudos. It gets you invites to lots of events where you can meet people and network and do all sorts of interesting stuff. And I think it's a good thing to apply for. You can just click on the Breakthrough Brits and apply yourself, and they'll contact you about your interests. So that's that one. And then the other thing is we are now open for the Games Awards. So this is the Games Awards. They're on the BAFTA Games page. And the Breakthrough Brits, I should say, the closing date I think is the 28th, especially the end of this week. No, hang on, is it today? What day is it? Might be today. Might be today or tomorrow. But anyway, it's on the. I should check that, shouldn't I? But I was also going to say about the Games Awards. If you want to put your game in for the awards, there's basically a reduced price offer until the end of July. I think it's £96 instead of 200 plus. So you basically save 150 quid if you put your game in before the end of July. It just has to be a game that's released this calendar year. You can still, it's not the closing date, it's just that you can put a game in and get a discount until the end of July. So that's quite good. I'm just going to figure out how to come back onto the chat now. I need to turn this off. Stops, all right, there we go, stop screen. Oh, if I click back in the thing, I can actually see, that's good, Colin. Can you see that? I can see me next to the screen share. Can you see that as well?
Yeah.
I didn't realise that, so I've clicked back into the tab. We are testing this technology as well at the same time, so I can actually see. Oh yeah, you move. All right, yeah, you're in control of it, aren't you? Yeah, cool. So that's good. So I can see me and the screen. So you're just moving those screens around, are you? Excellent, awesome. So that's good. Yeah. So there you go. So that's good. Yeah. So Games Award information, become a BAFTA member. Yeah, and generally we're just trying to get more BAFTA members as well. We're on a bit of a recruitment drive. It's I think £330 a year if you're outside of London, and you get lots of benefits. But it's more about supporting as I consider it, it's a charitable organisation that is the world's foremost organisation for developing the arts of video games. When I say arts, I mean the art of making video games. I include programming and design and QA and everything in that, because we want to, develop the capital A art of video games, and that's what BAFTA is doing, really. So there's a lot of benefits if you look on the website. So yeah, that's it's a very short BAFTA recruitment pitch there as well.
No, absolutely. No, it's a great organisation. So hopefully we'll see a few new members and a few new entrants to some of those initiatives.
There was a guy saying, I got very little response from the local studios. I'm from Leeds. What do you recommend I should do? They've got a lot of people applying for entry-level jobs, haven't they? Oh, one day we
yeah. Well, and this is placement. So say an offer to work for free, and it's one of those things that. I mean, it's a lot of companies are trying not to take advantage of people offering to work for free, but you can see the sort of two sides to it, that many people, and I think I would have been the same, would have genuinely really happily worked for free if it helped to get my foot in the door. But ironically, some of the better companies will still feel that's taking advantage of people and don't want to do it. So it's tough. I mean, from my point of view, my advice is just be persistent. Don't I know you're saying you've had very little response. Don't give up. Just keep trying, widen the net, go back to people. Half of the thing is timing. They might not have something just now, but try again in a month or 2 months, and they might have something come up then. The project requirements change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just about to drop a link in. Paul Ryczynski from Avalanche Studios in Liverpool, who was on he's on the Game Shop Live thing the other day, wasn't he? He's just done a bit of a Twitter thread about tips for people's CVs. I'm just going to drop that in. I can drop that in. Can I drop that in the comments? Hang on. How do I put them in the comments? Chat with the host. No, I can't drop something in the comments. I don't think I can drop something in the comments, Colin. I can only do it in a private chat.
If you tweet it, then we'll get the Games Jobs Live account to retweet it.
Yeah, so I've already retweeted it. Yes, it's from yesterday. Paul Ryczynski. He's saying, having reviewed hundreds of design jobs. Actually, if I share screen again, you can see that tweet, can't you? Hang on one sec. Oh, I've stopped my screen. Yeah. I'll do a different tab. Chrome tab. There you go. So he's one of the heads of Avalanche Studios in Liverpool, and he's just a little bit of tips for your CVs and stuff. So that's quite a nice little thread there. And he is Rushy33, at Rushy33 on Twitter. So he's hiring people, and he's got some tips to do that. I think catching people's eye. I mean, one of the main tips I've seen, actually, Colin, since we had the Games Job Live thing last Thursday, one of the main tips I've seen from a lot of people that were on that are hiring is don't be afraid to showcase your work. So, you're going to get a lot of CVs with a lot of text of blah, 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 and that's not going to catch your eye, I don't think. No,
and that's certainly one of the points, Rush, you made, wasn't it? So I've just retweeted that, and I think that's his headline point is, I get 100 CVs. The ones that are just, textual variations on what you did as your university degree are hard to differentiate. Showcase why you're amazing.
It's actually the same with pitching a game. So one of the up-to-date modern tips, it seems really crazy to call it modern because it's been around for ages. If you're pitching a game to someone, is when in your email put a 5 or 10 second animated GIF, because you can. Like, emails, pretty much every email now accepts animated GIFs. So do animated GIFs. Why not? And I think you can do that. Like, if you could do a 10-second animated GIF of your work, I wouldn't make it much longer than that. But just like catch your eye stuff. Even just turnarounds of models or something, that's gonna catch your eye. And it's like you are selling something. And unfortunately, not everyone's good at selling stuff. But you gotta try and sell yourself as much as possible.
Indeed. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on, Simon. That's been both useful, thoughtful, and just good fun. And as a little side effect, it's been useful testing the software.
Yeah. And it all seemed to work.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm always nervous about making a big switch before a thing that 600 people have signed up to. But hopefully the couple of dozen folk that I think have watched this have still got good value out of it, and it will live on YouTube for that audience of billions that Alan Partridge is going to send our way.
Yeah. Well, it's good to know as well, because I'm interested to learn about streaming and how you can get people in and out of conversations, because I'm quite interested in doing some events as well. So
the secret seemed to be, not to go into the detail, but the secret seemed to be to choose a cloud-based one rather than a desktop one. The desktop ones are technically better, but they give you problems if you're bringing in particularly many guests, whereas the cloud-based ones, as you saw, it's just a case of clicking a link and you can just jump in.
Oh yeah. Because I'm sorry, I didn't even think about it, but I've not downloaded any software. No, I'm just in the browser, aren't I? Yeah, and the image quality looks pretty good.
I think so. Yeah, we'll have a wee look back at the YouTube once it's archived and everything. But I think this has been a success.
Yeah. Seems
awesome.
Slick.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. It's been lovely catching up, and hopefully it's not it's not too many years until we're past all this COVID nonsense, and we can catch up at some event or somewhere or other.
Yeah, hopefully.
On that note.
Yeah. I was going to say there's sorry, one more thing, because I think people will be really interested about this. There is a the Gamescom Northern Powerhouse. The government are doing I need to read it out to you. Hang on. The government are doing a Northern Powerhouse mission to Gamescom, but the virtual Gamescom, and if you sign up for it, you can get 50% off the funds. So it's on the Game Republic. Game Republic are helping organising it. 50% funding to attend virtual Gamescom/DevCon for Northern Games companies. So if you're a Northern Games company or developer that can fit in with that, the government will pay half your fees. That is good information.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely well worth taking advantage of. Fantastic. Brilliant. All right, thank you so much, Simon.
Cheers,
we'll catch up soon. All right, cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.